Welcome to the WHU Most Awesome Founder podcast, a show about entrepreneurs, innovators, advisors, and educators, and the stories that make them who they are today. I'm your host, Ries Vaans, and today we welcome to the podcast Marco Dassisti. Marco is an alumnus of our WHU MBA program, as well as an alumnus of the first cohort of the WHU Accelerator program, when he was building the startup kitchX. Marco has recently launched a new startup called Qualimero, and I'm looking forward to talk with Marco about this new initiative. Marco, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dries. Thanks for having me.
Now, as you might know, we always start with the same question in this podcast, namely, we actually want to give the floor to our guests to do some storytelling about their personal background. So I would say the floor is yours to tell something about where you're coming from, what you have been doing in the past.
Yes, thank you. So basically, I am a WHU alum. I did my MBA, graduated 2020. And since then, Lasse and I, which is also an alumni from the MBA batch, went on to found kitchX. We both met during our studies at the MBA, which was great, meeting on campus, identifying potential ideas, validating them. So it was a great setting. And eventually we ended up building kitchX, which was a D2C furniture retail player. It was a completely digitalized end-to-end retail model, which basically sold furniture and fully fitted kitchens. And we started this at the end of 2020. And one of the special things that we built, Lasse and I, and was the fact that we built the whole customer journey on WhatsApp. So it was basically the world's first WhatsApp store, you can say. And we built a whole sales and servicing funnel, which enabled us to generate a total of around 6 million revenues annualized within the first 2 years. So this was our basically background behind it. Unfortunately, during the VC downturn of 2023 and a sharp decline in consumer spending, where consumers started spending more on energy renovations instead of home renovations, and generally the funding environment, we weren't able to raise a Series A, also partly due to the scalability of the model. And we ended up running down the company in October 2023. Trying obviously with all the stakeholders and employees to meet their demands as much as possible. But what we did learn from our experience of building this was the power of conversational commerce and the power of WhatsApp in capturing cold traffic on website and converting on leads.
Maybe before we move forward to Qualimero about kitchX, so you were saying, look, we had some kind of bad luck in terms of the macroeconomic circumstances, which I think is definitely the case. But you also briefly pointed to kind of some issues in terms of scalability, which is actually an issue that I often see with startups, that scalability might in the end be tougher than you initially expected. Could you maybe briefly talk a bit deeper about what was exactly the problem with scalability in your case?
Yes, I think the level of operations required for us was very, very high. So we had logistics partners, we have contractors that were working with us. The more we scaled in new regions, the more logistics setup costs were required, the more contractor costs were required. So an additional euro in sales meant an additional euro cents in costs that would come. So scalability was in the end not ideal for a Series A, especially comparing it with other SaaS models that scale at a much faster rate.
So you were saying that as you were growing, also the complexity was growing, triggering additional costs, and that put some limits to your unit economic scalability, and especially in the current kind of funding climate, where we have entered the age of efficiency, that was a huge concern for some of the investors.
But also another issue is scaling marketing. So marketing costs started over customer acquisition costs did also move up and down quite a lot. This was partly due because you are, as an e-commerce company, still very reliant on the big channels of Meta to advertise, and anybody can advertise. So we saw an influx of a lot of competitors increasing their spending during the financial downturn as consumer spending went down. A lot of traditional large players started entering and bidding in the market, which drove our customer acquisition costs up.
Yeah, okay, clear. But so now you decided to start a new initiative, which is a kind of, I would say, follow-up initiative, not? It's based on what you have learned at kitchX, that you are now building Qualimero. Can you explain a bit more in depth what you're exactly doing? So you're also, I saw on LinkedIn, it's about an AI-powered WhatsApp chat, which sounds very fancy, so that's good. But can you explain a bit more what we exactly need to understand with that?
Yes. So basically with kitchX, we really understood the power of WhatsApp in converting cold traffic on a website. So individuals that are just interested or just browsing on the website, and converting that traffic into actual leads or even buyers. And WhatsApp is very, very powerful at doing that. The issue was always with WhatsApp that you will have to have human interaction, and it is therefore quite costly. You will have to have service employees servicing, messaging, and asking customer questions. And so that's what we learned from kitchX, the power of WhatsApp and converting those leads. What we are now doing with Qualimero is we decided to build a SaaS solution around, the very basic ideas that we had implemented, but started now creating a real SaaS solution based upon WhatsApp and AI agents that can be deployed behind it. So, basically, the underlying idea is customers of usually high-ticket items come onto the website. Specific questions they feel they need to be answered before either making a transaction or purchasing something. And these answers or these questions can be answered by sales agents whose idea is to actually convert them into a next event, whether it be a consultation call, whether it be a checkout at the store, or whether be it a brochure or So that's our idea. The great thing about it is that these employees, usually required to answer the questions now through the leveraging of large language models such as OpenAI, are not necessary to that same degree, and they run 24/7, 7 days a week, and the customer feels a perceived higher customer satisfaction and availability of the retailer.
Okay, but so it means, let's imagine I'm a customer and I'm browsing on a website to buy a new kitchen. So what you offer to this kind of companies is a solution that when I'm browsing on the website, that I can engage in a chat via WhatsApp, where kind of the bot or whatever you call it can actually kind of push me towards the next step in my customer journey. Not that I make an appointment or even already make an order. That's the kind of SaaS solution that you want to provide to that kind of companies that are engaged in D2C, I suppose.
Exactly. So how do customers today reach out, to a potential retailer? They have the contact page where they fill out a static form. There is the so-called lead journey where they click through some stuff and do some scrolling and add some data that they don't really mean. And 99% of these people end up ending the customer journey or the lead funnel before and having to enter their private detail. Or they have some sort of bot which gives you predefined answers, or they try to call you. All of these solutions are semi-ideal. The contact form is usually very boring and dry, and most people don't enjoy doing it. The lead funnel usually just has wrong answers most of the time, with a high abrupt rate at the end when you have to add personal details. The website bot is usually a static where I have predefined questions and answers that I have to click. And finally, the call center is really expensive to run. So what we are offering is we're saying, hey, give your customers the ability to ask you the questions. We call these questions the last mile of product consulting. These are open questions usually required before the transaction or the interest is really there. How much does it cost? Do I need to, how much guarantee do I have? Can you deliver to this and this address? And the questions are ideal to answer per WhatsApp. Why? Because the customer automatically gives his contact details when answering per WhatsApp, so when sending a WhatsApp. So I already have a lead, I already have a phone number behind a request, which usually 99% of funnels miss out on.
Yeah.
And secondly, I have opened up a communication channel, which the AI sales agent is servicing at the beginning, but upon which my sales staff can touch upon and can reopen that conversation, or even target through marketing initiatives like WhatsApp marketing.
Yeah. And so, as I understand, you're leveraging large language models to kind of engage in interaction with the customers, not?
Exactly.
Yeah. And because I think there is a big discussion about how useful are large language models already in real business applications, where we all see, I think, the huge opportunities. But I think at the moment there's a bit of concern, like, okay, these models can kind of generate an adequate answer in, let's say, 95% of the cases, and they are really good in that. But if you want to get to 99% accuracy or even 100% accuracy, that seems to be still very challenging to realize, especially if you want to kind of leverage your own knowledge. You need what is called RAG applications, refined augmented algorithms. There seem to be quite some limitations there. How do you deal with that kind of issue? That's okay, for 95% of the cases, it generates very good information, but to bring it to 99%, that still seems to be quite challenging.
So our product team does work very focused to close this gap, and we think it's extremely important to be able to close this gap. To give the customers the exact right information. So what we do is two things. We try to, actively reduce bias and hallucinations that are inherent to LLM models by, first of all, adding additional input that is specific to the client. So one of our clients is a large retailer of expensive rings. So we actually input product catalog through API connections that gives an idea on products, prices. So we actually feed that model the correct information that is currently live on the website. The second task that we do to prevent hallucinations and also is we give the agent very clear boundaries on what to act upon and what to not act upon. So it does restrict the operating field. Okay, it cannot tell you what the weather is today, but it will obviously try to advise you and convert you to the next sales event required. So it limits the requirements, but increases the reliability. And that's how today our product team is engaging this challenge.
Yeah, okay, clear. Yeah, so you're putting some boundaries, you're kind of doing some specialized training on specialized data to reduce this risk of hallucination as much as possible. Yeah. Okay, exactly. Makes sense.
So I think also one of the great things is we connect to the client's, content data management or, database where we actually can pull live information.
Yeah. Okay. And of course, you're now, I think, talking with a lot of companies that do D2C. And so the topic that you're focusing on is conversion of customers, which is actually a topic that I think is interesting for a lot of listeners, because I think conversion of clients is one of the biggest challenges that early stage startups typically face. Talking with these clients, what kind of stuff did you learn about the difficulty of conversion? And maybe also based on your own experience at kitchX, why is conversion of customers such a challenge for early stage startups?
So I think it's getting the right sales funnel, especially as a consumer startup or consumer company, is really important. And identifying those channels that will convert a lot higher is key. For us, in our experience, some of the clients we deal with, which are usually high ticket items in consumer businesses, high ticket items we define as products that require some consulting behind it. So it's not like a pair of socks, but it's usually an expensive grill, or it's glasses, or it's tailored suits. It's also dentist services that require some sort of consulting behind it. They are very hard to convert, and there is usually a high loss of leads along the way of the qualification process. With our solution, we think this automatic sales agents through WhatsApp have increased sales conversions, or lead conversions, to be exact, by the tenfold compared to existing channels.
Okay.
The existing channels are, in this case, the contact formulas, the lead funnels, and the requests per appointments per telephone. We have seen a tenfold increase of conversion, because I'm able to capture this cold traffic and bring them exactly into appointments or into concrete sales offers or orders. This helps reduce customer acquisition costs immensely.
Okay.
So retailers that we work with have seen a decrease of marketing spend and increase in sales, which is the ideal scenarios of retailers.
Yeah. Okay. Clear. Now, maybe to briefly go back to the kitchX and the transition. So you have spent, I would say, like 2 or even 3 years on kitchX, something like that, no?
Yeah, 3 years, yeah.
And as you mentioned, you managed to get substantial annualized revenue, but in the end, you had to come to the conclusion, like, look, it's time to close down, also driven, I would say, by exogenous circumstances and just a macroeconomic environment that was not really great for you. Now, apparently, you didn't wait that long to start the next startup, which I always found intriguing, because you have spent like 3 years of your life working very hard. And in the end, okay, it was not a big failure, but it was also not a big success. But apparently you seem to have the drive, also together with your co-founder, to immediately jump into the next adventure, which me, as an outsider, I have to say, as a professor, I always find quite intriguing that people seem to be able to kind of just jump into the next adventure. Can you maybe explain me a bit, like how this drive is there?
I think it's hard to rationalize this, but at the end, in the end, Lasse, Kevin, and I, which are the 3 founders of Qualimero, and we met each other through the kitchX time. We learned a lot, and we learned that we can work together really well. So I think having a good team already in place is the basis for a good startup and building a new company. I think that's one of the things that most new founders struggle with, not having a team around them. Yeah. We had a good team put together, 3 different personalities, 3 different skill sets that complement each other. And we met, and we were proven through our times at kitchX. Secondly, I think, is once your first startup doesn't work out as you'd expected it, you get used to being a free lion in the savannah, and addressing challenges and living a sort of risk profile, and enjoying these ups and taking the downs, and then it goes back up. And I think you get a little bit emotionally addicted to this. It's my theory. Going back to a classical corporate jobs with less of these unbalances and very good times and very hard times makes it just a little bit boring. So it wasn't an option for us to go back into corporates. So what we did do at the beginning was we switched into consulting jobs. So we went into freelance consulting some of our clients, some of our people we were working with before. I was working as in that field before, and that enables us to get some initial funding to start in Qualimero. But I think the team was there, the mindset was there, and the idea was there. It was just let's do it now. And there was also one more thing, once the startup sort of drops down and fails, you're back to square zero. And the great thing about being square one, the great thing about being at square one is you don't have that much to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I like what you're saying, because you're saying, look, of course, when it doesn't kind of run out as you wanted, your team gets really tested. You know, you're facing quite significant challenges together. And if a team at least can kind of survive that kind of testing environment, if you go through the storm together and you have the feeling that you have built the resilience as a team together, that of course then demonstrates that you have a very strong team and that this team might be able to pull off the next challenge. So that seems to be the core reasoning, if I understand it well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Maybe one more question about WhatsApp. Because WhatsApp is owned by Meta, and I think in the business literature there has been a lot of speculation about what Meta actually wants to do with WhatsApp, and more specifically how they want to monetize it. Because actually nowadays they are not really monetizing this particular application. Now, given that you are kind of an expert in WhatsApp, that you have been using it a lot, do you have any predictions, or do you see any trend towards what WhatsApp will become in the future?
Yes. So very, very good question. So I think if we look to the Brazilian or Indian market and we see Latin America, I would say, if we see what Meta is testing there in terms of WhatsApp, I think that's what the future holds for Europe. So what are they doing? In India, you can already make payments. It's like, in Germany, we would say PayPal. So they have that function in there. And in Latin America, they also have sub-services involved. So they have, open API where I can add product catalogs, make orderings. So I think it will become more and more a sales channel. And if we want the full big picture, I think we're looking at a WeChat sort of model that is planned here. It will take some time. I think, legislation and in Europe will have will be a little bit of a break in innovation, but I think that's the overall picture, to reach a WeChat sort of status.
Yeah, so then it becomes an kind of over-encompassing app where you can do everything that you need to do. Yeah.
Exactly. I can book my cab ride. I can book a hotel. I can pay my bills. I can get life insurance on it if I need to. Yeah. And I think that's some of the use cases that we are experimenting in today. It is possible. We are doing some of these features. We're just relying on third party. So, for instance, we are offering today a checkout system on WhatsApp. We're just connecting it with Stripe.
Yeah.
So we're not executing it, or we are enabling customers to sign contracts through WhatsApp. We're just offering it through a third-party app, DocuSign.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I've seen recently, for instance, in India, that nowadays you can even kind of get your identity cards via WhatsApp and stuff like that. So they seem to be way ahead of us in that kind of applications. I don't. It's very difficult to imagine that in Germany you would be able to apply for an identity card via WhatsApp.
You wouldn't even be able to apply for an appointment to get an identity WhatsApp.
Yeah. But that also, of course, takes the question: do you actually think that the German market is ready for this?
So that's a very, very good question. We have this debate very frequently in our management team. So we are actually targeting the German market, but we're also targeting the Indian and US market.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have teams there that are sales rep and execute sort of sales in those areas, because they are more innovative and open to executing this than the core conservative European markets. That's unfortunately the case, but it's also an opportunity for us to execute, as a SaaS solution across borders. Also within Europe, the rate is highly different. So if we look to our neighbors, the Netherlands, they operate and execute WhatsApp in a conversational commerce way much more than we do in Germany.
Yeah. So you would say that Germany is simply a late entrant, and you see that even in the neighboring countries, they're already much more advanced in this, and so you're expecting that Germany will follow in the end.
That's
just take some
our
time.
bet.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's your bet. Okay, good. I actually have a broader question for you because, of course, I checked out your LinkedIn profile before we talked, and I saw that actually before you started kitchX, you actually have been working in a more corporate setting. And I was quite intrigued by your time at OB Next. So OB, a big corporate in Germany, and they seem to have this kind of, I don't know if it's exactly what it is, but a kind of digital venture builder that they called OB Next. And so you have been working there for a number of years. And so that means that you don't only have experience as an entrepreneur, but actually also as what we call an intrapreneur. Yeah, so that you are kind of doing entrepreneurship within the setting of a corporate. Can you maybe briefly reflect on what you learned there during these years,
Yes.
positive or negative?
Yes. So OBNext was basically the innovation digital unit created by Obi, which is the DIY retailer store across Europe. Their idea was to basically disrupt itself before disruption comes from the outside. Mm-hmm. And there for me was a great opportunity to start learning about, digital models. Before I was working at BCG in a restructuring setting. So, cost cutting and structuring companies. So really learning about digital business models, lead generation, lead models, creating marketplaces. I actually helped support the creation of a marketplace for contractor services called Machbar. So there was a really great opportunity and a great setting for me to learn in a safe space about key concepts of innovation, obviously in a corporate setting. So as always, any corporate innovation is always restricted to certain limitations that you would not have if you were doing it alone. But it's a great safe haven for me to at that time test some new ideas.
Yeah, okay. Because it's actually a question that I also often get from our students. We have this master in entrepreneurship, for instance, and when students kind of are at the end of their educational trajectory here, and they start sometimes getting offers from this kind of units, but they might also have in the back of their mind the ambition to create their own startup. And so you see that they're often a bit in doubt about, should I first go maybe into a more, this kind of safe space, as you describe it, where I can learn some stuff, I can experiment, or should I immediately kind of make the bet and start my own startup? Maybe based on your own experience, what would be your recommendation to the students?
So I would say it really depends in terms of how much of an idea you have already and of a founders team you have a network. I would say if you have a great network already during your student days, and if you have already a concrete idea, maybe already an MVP that's, maybe you're getting clicks or interests, I would say pursue the idea, because the learnings of an entrepreneur, not an intrapreneur, but an entrepreneur are, 100-fold.
Yeah.
If you don't have an idea, if you don't maybe have a solid network, if you're still unexperienced about, setting up MVPs, then I maybe do think intrapreneurship is a good way. For me, I think it was a good way, as coming from a sort of consultancy sort of mindset, open up, build a network. And if you look at the end of the day at what kitchX was, taking some of the initial ideas that we had tested with OB Next, but applying them to the kitchen world, right? So a fully integrated end-to-end marketplace for kitchens and furnitures. I already had a good idea on how to manage contractors, what that looked like, products, logistics. I had learned a lot about that about OB Next as well. So for me, the progression was startup. I knew that's the road I wanted to go, and the entrepreneurship helped me really to sort of build my network, build my ideas, and
yeah, that's what in the literature we would describe. You need to have the necessary social and human capital before you create your own startup. And if you already have it, then you can do it. If you don't yet have it, it might be better to at first indeed go to this kind of intrapreneurship environment, or maybe do the job as a founder associate at another startup to just build experience before you do your own startup. Yeah. Okay, so you would agree with that. Great. Maybe something about your team. As you were saying before, the team was a very important kind of reason to create this new initiative. but and actually, I don't know the third co-founder, but at least Lasse and you, as I understand, you don't have a very strong, or strong is the wrong word. You guys come from more a business background and not really a technical background. And I think there's a lot of discussion nowadays about, can you still build a successful startup without having a technical co-founder? Yeah. What would be your position on that discussion?
It's funny because when we were doing the WHU Accelerator, everybody was saying, hey, you guys don't have a technical co-founder. You guys, you know. And that forced us to obviously, so our decision was to wait before we find the right guy. Okay. And that decision was really right in the end. So we would have rather waited for, a seed round or a pre-seed round to hire a top guy instead of, bringing somebody early stage in who we couldn't really afford, who did not have the technical skills required at an early stage. So our decision was to wait until we get the right technical co-founder. Until we had the seed round, which we did in the end, right? But what did we do before that? It really forced us to work with no-code tools. Okay? These are so powerful today. And if we look at, basic tools like Zapier, like Bubble or Airtable, it already enables you to build great MVP products that you can get funding upon without having a technical expertise. And having ChatGPT now as well act as a sort of, no-code advisor really, in my opinion, delays the time at which you need to find a technical. So there is some time now that I think it is possible to really build upon these no-code tools.
Yeah.
At some stage, these no-code tools become non-scalable. They become harder to adapt. They become harder to scale. So at that stage, you will have to switch. But hopefully until then, you have funding and you can build a DevOps team or a product team that can help you support that transition.
Yeah, so
also, I think one more thing is the product changes so often at the beginning of the journey. And you're building features and you're changing stuff. And I remember when we were building, our product on Airtable and with Zapier in the background, we were continuously changing this product. And I remember one very specific decision. We were meeting with a software development company, which made us an offer to develop the product that we had in mind for 60,000 euros. And we thought, what? And they were good. These guys were good. And the price was fair. And, it was a WHU contract, great company. We loved the guys. But then we said, hey, guys, before we spend this amount of money, how about we build it on no-code? Because we don't even know what we're building yet. And that was the best financial decision that I think I made. Yeah. Because it really enables me to adapt that product very easily. And I'm in charge of changing features and adapting features instead of a software developer that I'm paying, 200 euros an hour.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very interesting point, that these no-code tools can actually, they give you the opportunity to postpone kind of hiring a top-notch CTO or technical co-founder or whatever, and until you have kind of a better understanding in which direction you're actually going. So it reduces the need to immediately hire somebody, and it gives you the time to really search for somebody that perfectly fits with the team. That's very interesting approach. Yeah, so maybe we should, in WHU, we should start a course on no-code tools to help entrepreneurs. Something like that.
I actually do think so. There is a guy, I unfortunately don't know his name, and he's hosting workshops, rapid prototyping with no-code, at least in the Düsseldorf campus. I feel bad it's now for not reminding me of his name, but we can post it in the links. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Maybe something about, indeed, you did so we talked about how you had this experience in the corporate and that helped you becoming an entrepreneur, but you also did this MBA program at WHU. Any reflection on how that MBA program has helped you in your further steps?
Yeah, I think the MBA program really opened up these different insights and inputs that I have received across, different professionals and individuals that I've met along the way. And I started the MBA program really thinking, I wanna, progress the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
And I ended up the MBA. I want to be an entrepreneur now.
Yeah.
And it was such a life-changing experience. And, I wouldn't have, and when I tell people that, I was like, well, why would you do an MBA? To find that you're an entrepreneur? Well, actually, for me, it was the best investment, because that told me exactly who I want to be and what my purpose is. So for me, it was very life-changing. All these experiences, individuals, guest talks, entrepreneurs that I got to meet, all this input I was getting eventually defined my professional career now for the years to come.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was more a kind of learning about what is actually the optimal career trajectory for me in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I think in the MBA, it's and I remember, Martin Fasnacht and other individuals saying that it's more about a personal journey, discovering yourself and, your future career and defining that.
Yeah.
And I have to, and I at the beginning I thought, well, I'm here to learn, hard facts and stuff, but it is true. Yeah. It is a personal journey. It is much more than an academic journey. It is an academic journey with a personal, life-changing elements behind it.
Yeah, great. Okay, Marco, we always want to end the episode with asking our guests for some recommendations about books that they have recently read that they think are really inspiring, or podcasts that you're listening to that you think the audience should listen to. Any recommendations for the audience?
So I was actually reading over the Christmas period the book How Big Things Get Done from Dan Gardner. It's a book that basically explains how large projects get executed or complex projects get executed, and what are some of the common pitfalls behind it. So I don't want to spoil too much or give it away, but it's packed with real cases and real examples, and it really shows you how behavioral biases or psychology can help impact large projects in being executed. So I think if you're embarking on a large project or something that is life-changing or big, whether in a corporate setting, I think it's very interesting to see a collection of case studies.
Okay, great. Okay, Marco, then I would like to thank you for sharing some of your recent experiences with us. And I wish you, of course, all the best luck with your new initiative. Sounds very exciting. And yeah, given that I'm a bit of a large language model nerd, I'm very intrigued about what you're doing. So I really would like to have a follow-up, maybe privately, to go a bit deeper into the tech nerd stuff. But that's another topic. We don't want to bore our audience with that, I would suppose. And to our audience, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please connect again for our next one. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.